The materials I used for this project included copper wire, masking tape, table salt, coffee grounds, eggshells, banana peel, and tinfoil. So the first thing I did was actually pull apart the Chore Boy, which is this long strand of copper wire, which can end up making possible red colors in the pots. From there, I ended up putting some of the banana peels within the copper sleeve to kind of make sure that the banana stayed nice and tight onto the wall of the pinch pot. Then I realized once I was done doing that I actually needed to figure out how to enclose the top and bottom part of the copper sleeve. So I grabbed some cotton twine and just knotted the top and bottom so that it was fully tied on both ends. I use tinfoil as a sagger firing. Sagger fire is when you contain materials within something when you're firing. So in this case, I ended up using the tinfoil to contain the coffee grounds, eggshells, parts of the copper wire within the tinfoil so that it didn't fall out during the firing. I used masking tape to help pieces of material stay on the pots. Banana peels can leave possibly like some orange spotty impressions. Eggshells, I clean them out first, and they can possibly leave a texture on the pot. I used coffee grounds. They can sometimes add browns, greens, or even blues to the pots. I also chose the table salt because it can possibly turn the pots yellow. Out of the 5 pots that I made, I chose to put different materials on 4 of them. I decided to leave the pinch pot that I had textured with my fingertips totally blank, just to kind of see what the actual pit fire would do to it without having coffee grounds or banana peels around it. It's really important to remember that you can put in a lot of different materials in a pit firing as long as they're organic. You should never be putting plastic materials into a fire because when they are burned, they create toxic fumes. I encourage you to be experimental as long as it's safe. And there are a lot of resources on the internet about what other potters use in their pit firings. And so I'd recommend, if you're kind of curious as to what other materials create different colors, you can look that up and kind of figure out what's best for you. All right, so the steps that I had in my head as to how I was going to pit fire. Step 1 was going to create a bed of embers so that the grill itself would be heated up, but there wouldn't be actual flames happening before putting in the pots. Step 2 was to put these slats of wood that I created and lay them on top, kind of in the middle of the basin of the grill, and that way it would kind of give me a barrier between the actual embers itself and where the pots would sit. Step 3 would put the pots in directly on top of the slats of wood. Step 4, let them burn fire. And then step 5, pretty much just letting it cool down. I let my grill cool for about 4 to 5 hours before reopening it. And everything was cool enough that with a pair of gloves it was fine to take out. Usually potters will either put them on the side of their like brick fire pit, or like you saw in the article, they will put them on the grill part of the grill itself and then remove the pots and then put them actually in the fire. And I wasn't sure who had what at home when it came to safely doing that, safely handling pots that are really hot. So I tried my best to work with just the basin of the grill itself and not trying to remove hot pottery and then putting it back into a fire, because that can be very dangerous to work with that type of hot material. During the pit firing process, while you're watching it, I want you to pick out some things that I made a mistake on or things that I should have done differently.
to see if you can catch the mistakes as well as what I realized after the fact. So while you're watching this, kind of take a look and make some mental notes as to what I messed up on. A few of the things that were rookie mistakes, but again, this is my first time doing it, and now I know next time, is I forgot to put the lid on the pit fire. So what that means is when I put the pottery onto the slots of wood that I made, the fire caught onto those pieces of wood, and the amount of oxygen that was being allowed into the grill allowed the flames to get super hot super quick. Super rookie mistake, because what I should have done is after putting the pots onto those pieces of wood, I should have put the lid on immediately after with a little bit of a ventilation on top, or leaving the lid cracked open to allow some airflow without telling the fire to go raging into hot flames and, as you can see, explode all 5 of my pots. Another thing is I think I rushed the entire process. So when I was going in and trying to make like this bed of embers, burning down the fire enough to kind of create a little bit of a warm atmosphere, I think the flames were still too tall and too happening before I chose to go ahead and put in those wood slots in the pottery itself. I should have taken my time and I should have waited for that fire to burn down even more before putting in those pots. Another thing that you could also try doing, again, this video was for me to kind of give you guys as much information as possible so that you can go ahead and experiment on your own. What I would recommend for you guys is actually putting in one pot at a time. So I put in all 5 of my pots and then made all those mistakes. And if you guys wanted to put in one of your pinch pots and kind of see what happens, and if the whole thing explodes, then at least you have a few other ones to maybe adjust and try later, or wait for the fire to cool down a lot more before putting in the next pot. So use my mistakes to your advantage and try to see if there's a way to put in one pot at a time. Make sure not to be too fast and too hasty in wanting to pit fire. Make sure the fire is not too hot. And then also making sure you're not allowing as much oxygen as possible into the pit fire. All right, so here are my final results. The pictures are kind of sad, but it is what it is. So go ahead and take a look. And I want you guys to make sure that you're not discouraged in any way. I want you to use my mistakes to your advantage. You can do a much better job than what I did, and I'm hoping that you get a better result. Please make sure to share with me what ends up happening, whether everything explodes, whether you get one pot that it survives. I want to see whatever you end up doing, so please keep me posted so that we can kind of bounce ideas back and forth with each other and just see what happens. All right? Good luck.